Holding everybody. Welcome, and again, welcome to today's Tivoli User Community Ask the Expert series. In today's session, our expert speaker, Pedro Guerra, will discuss Netcool Impact 7.1 Single Sign-On with JazzSM and Dash. Today's webcast is interactive, so you may ask a question at any time using the chat window or the raise hand button located in the control panel. Today's session is being recorded, and you'll be provided a copy of today's materials following the call. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Pedro. Take it away.
Thank you. So today we're going to do an integration of Netcool Impact 7.1 with Dash, and what we're going to do is use the LDAP as a user repository. So the first thing we're going to go is through the agenda. So I'm going to do a little bit of introduction of where I'm coming from, the scenario that I'm going to be working on. Then what we're going to do is the requirements to enable single sign-on for Dash and Impact. Then we're going to do a configuration, stuff you need to do on Dash first. You can either do it, my recommendation would do it in Dash first and then Netcool Impact. Then eventually you integrate both of them, and I'll show you the final product, and then we'll have some questions at the end. So with introduction, I've been working with Netcool Impact for about the past 8 years since version 3.1. I've been level 2 support. Do I know every single thing about Impact? No, but I feel confident that I know 99% of it. Dash is something new that has come up with other products, and the integration with Impact has come up with Impact 7.1, and it's something that a lot of customers are using now, and we have seen a lot increase the volume of ticketing because of the integration. And there's a few things that were not clear on the documentation that hopefully after this presentation are clear. Okay, so next we're going to jump to the scenario. So the scenario we're going to work on it is I'm going to have my Dash server, and then I'll have my Impact server with the GUI server running in another machine. So then what we're going to do is do the integration between those two. Okay, so what I want to do is at the end of this is display my Netcool Impact server on the Dash server. Requirements, couple of requirements. You need to have a user repository. You cannot do this. It's a requirement also for single sign-on. You will need to use an LDAP or an Omnibus as a user repository. Now, for this presentation, again, we're going to use LDAP. So a couple things on LDAP. The LDAP SSO Realm needs to be the same on the Dash and the Impact. So this was a good question that came out during my configuration, working with the Dash team, what this needed to be. So this needs to match whatever you have on your Impact. Now, couple things. How do you check that? I'll show you on the Dash side when we go to the GUI. But on the Impact side, when you configure your LDAP for it, you go to the, your Impact Home etc, your instance name, and actually, my bad. I'll show you at that step how to check on the Impact side when we do the configuration of the SSO Realm. It's under the properties of the LDAP properties files when you configure your LDAP. Another requirement that you need to do is that how do I know if I am running on Impact under LDAP? Another place you can check is that you can check the WhatsApp.pros file to make sure that the username, that your admin username is part of the LDAP. And in this case, I know my username is webgui admin3 is an LDAP user that I use for it. So that's how I check my that my LDAP is, my user LDAP is the admin. Another thing that requirement is that once you configure your Dash with LDAP, right, you need to configure your user, and it has to be the same user as Impact. For example, my is webgui admin3 on your Dash needs to have all the roles assigned. That's something that, you can change the roles after this configuration, but for this configuration, my advice is to assign all the roles on the Dash side. So the first thing you do is we're going to configure Dash. So you're going to go into, you're going to log into Dash. So you're going to see this screen once you're going to enter with your LDAP user. So once I enter with my LDAP user, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the settings, and under settings, you're going to go to the Web Sphere Admin Console. So once you're in your Admin Console, it's going to pop up another window for the WebSphere Integration Solution Console. So in this console, what you're going to do is you're going to log in with the user account that you set up while you were installing your Dash. So in my case, I use a WASAdmin account. Okay. Can you use the LDAP one? Yes, you can. But I will suggest to use the WASAdmin account, because I've seen a few things that didn't work properly when I used the LDAP one for the WebSphere integration that I'm still trying to get working with development in level 3 on the Dash side of it clear out. But for the purpose, and my advice will be to use the user that you configure where you set up your Dash. So in this case, it was WASAdmin. So once I enter my configuration, the first thing I go is go under security. I click on the global link. Okay, so now here it comes. The SSO Realm, right, needs to be consistent on both products. Remember, I mentioned this before in one of my requirements. So what I'm showing you is, to your left panel is my Dash, and to my right is my Impact. Okay, so this needs to be the same, and this is configured when you do the LDAP configuration. So when you do the LDAP configuration, your realm name for the Dash, which is on the left side, is SSO Realm. I did the same thing when I configure my Impact. And where do I see that my configuration Impact? That's on the Impact .properties file. That file is on my path, if you see that on the screen to the right, or the picture to the right, where it's under install security. So that properties file, if you go to the option after the LDAP SSA enable equal to false, you will see that my LDAP SSO Realm is the same exact thing as my Dash. Now, let's say you didn't do that. You have two different ones. Can you change them? Yes. The easier way to do it will be to do it on the Dash side, because you can go to the UI, and all you do is you click on the configure button. So this button right here, you click on, let me highlight it. So you will click on the configure button right here, right? Once you configure, you can modify the real name. Okay, so you can change this up to match the one that you have on your Impact. Okay, so that's requirement number 1. Okay, so let me move on. Let me take this highlighter. And let me clear. Okay. So once you do that, once you verify that this is the same, you can continue on. If it's not, you need to modify one of them to match the other one. Okay. My advice is, again, Dash. It's much easier to do it. If you want to do it on the Impact, let me go through steps. If you want to do it through Impact, what you need to do is change this file right here, disable your LDAP configuration, and then re-enable it again. So it's a little bit longer on the Impact side to change that. Now, once you configure, once you know that's that, you make sure that the two match. You move to the next panel. So then you need to configure single sign-on. You're still on the global, and then what you're going to do is you're going to click on the web and ISP security. You're going to expand that. Then you're going to see a single sign-on SSO. So you're going to click there. Now, once you click there, you're going to get the second panel. Okay. In there, you're going to have a domain name and LTPA cookie name. Okay. So the domain name needs to be exactly the same for both products, for Dash and Impact. Okay. So when you're doing that, you need to remember this, because when you enable single sign-on on Impact, you need to remember these two things. So they need to be exactly the same. For the purpose of this presentation, my servers were at tiplab.austin.ibm.com, so I chose that as my domain name. Could I chose austin.ibm.com? Yes, I could have done that. Could I chose ibm.com? Yes, I could have done that. But I want to be more specific. I didn't want to be too generic, so I chose tiplab.austin.ibm.com. If you notice, it has a dot at the beginning of the name, and you need to have that. If you don't have that, it will not work. Now, the LTPA cookie name by default is LTPA token 2. Can you change it? Yes. But if it's default, I'll say leave it as it is. Make it a default. Okay. If you want to change it, remember, if you change it, you need to remember later on. And I'll show you once we get to the impact side. So once you do that, you're going to click apply and OK. Okay. Then we're going to do the SSL certificate for impact into Dash Trust Store. How do we do that? So we go back to the security tab. Now we're going to go under SSL certificates and key management. That will open another window. That window, you're going to see a section called related items. In there, you're going to go in key stores and certificates. That will open a new window for you. In that window, there's going to give you two options, no default key store and no default trust store. So you're going to choose no default trust store. Once you do that, you're going to go under additional properties and you're going to select signer certificates. I know this is a lot and could be confusing, and that's why I put it in this way so you know exactly where to go. So once you click on signer certificates, it will open a new window. In this new window, I'm going to show you what certificates you have. You should only have one unless you have other things that require a certificate, but by default you will only have root. Now you're going to do retrieve from port. Okay, that's the option you're going to choose. Okay, so once you do that, it's going to open a new panel. Okay, so the panel is going to be general properties. If you see it, host, port, alias, all the stuff is going to be empty. Okay, the only thing that's going to be there by default is going to be the no default SSL settings. Okay, so now what do I put here? What you're going to put there is going to be the host name where your impact is running. Okay, again, use the fully qualified name when you're doing that. Why? Sometimes short names, the configuration on your servers are not properly configured, DNS might not be properly configured, and this will not work. So my advice is to use the fully qualified name of your impact server. Okay, now port. What port would I use here? The port that you're going to use here is going to be your impact UI port, but it's going to be the HTTPS, okay, not the HTTP port. Okay, if you notice, I'm not using default because by default the HTTP is 16.3.10 and 16.3.11 will be my HTTPS port. So, you know, I don't use defaults. So how do I find my ports? So I put the path in there. So you go under your impact home, WLP servers, impact UI, and what you will do is open the bootstrap.properties. And then I highlighted there. It shows you all the ports that my impact UI is running. I will choose the HTTPS port, and that's 16.124. So I'll put that port in there. Now the alias name, you can name it anything you want. So in this case, I chose Impact SSL. Then what I do is click Retrieve Signer Information. Why do I do this? I want to make sure that I can retrieve this information from the host. I can connect to this host. And you will get the second panel, which will give you a serial number, will give you the issue to, the issue by, the fingerprint, and the period, you know, the valid period, basically the due date. So this certificate will be good until August 7 to 2025, which is a long time. So once you do that, you click OK. You move to the next. The next one is you need to export the LTPA key file from Dash and copy the exported file to this Impact 7.1. So how do we do that? So again, you go to the global security, right? And then you click, you're going to see a section in there that is called LTPA. Make sure you select it, you click in that. Once you click on that, it's going to open another window, which is number 3. So now by default, you're going to have the key set group. So you can leave it as note LTPA Key Set Group. The timeout, you can either change it, or you can leave it default, which is 120 minutes. I think it's good enough. And then it's going to ask you for a password. Okay, now this password is very important because you're going to need this password when you configure single sign-on on Impact. Okay, so here, the password, any password you choose, but remember, write it down somewhere. Make sure you type the correct password. Make sure if you put extra characters or pound signs or you're putting numbers, make sure you write it down somewhere because you're going to need this later on. Okay, once you put the password, confirm the password, you're going to click apply, okay, and then, oh my bad, one more thing. Then you need to put a path where you want to export the keys. Okay, so these keys, the LTPA keys are going to be exported. So I chose the temp, the TMP directory on my Dash server. So remember, this is going to be on my Dash server. So this is going to get exported to my Dash server. So I'm going to name it LTPA keys, and then on temp directory, then I'm going to click export keys, and that's going to export it. Okay, then you should see a message on the top once it's exported, something like this. The keys were successfully exported to the TMP LTPA keys. So I know they're exported there on my Dash server. Once I do that, I click OK, and I'm done with that. So now I have the keys on my temp directory, and now what I need to do is copy them to my Impact server. Now, as I mentioned in this presentation, I only have my Impact server and my GUI server running on the same server. So you need to copy these keys to both sections. So where do I copy this? So the first thing I'll do is I go back to my Impact, my backend of Impact, and I go to Impact Home WLP User Servers, and then I'll go to the Impact UI first, and then I go under Resources Security, and what I'm going to do is the LTP keys, you're going to see an LTPA keys already there. So what I'll do is I'll make a copy of it, and I'll call it LTPA keys.orig. Why do I do this? In case I have problems with LTPA keys, I did something wrong, I can always go back to the original and my Impact will still continue to work. Okay, so I will do the same thing for my Impact server. Where's the path? If you look at the top one and the bottom one, the only thing that changes is after servers. So I'll go to my NCI, which is my instance name for my Impact server. Then I go under Resources and Security, and I'll do the same thing. I just, move the LTPA keys and rename it to LTPA keys orig. So once I'm doing that, I'm fine. Can I do this while the server is running? Yes, I did that while the server was running. So once I do that, I'll go ahead and copy the new keys. So if you see it, you will see the new LTPA keys. Now, my new LTPA keys I need to copy to both, to the Impact UI and the NCI servers, to both sections. So I'm only showing here that I copied to the GUI one, but I also did it to the NCI one. So you need to do it to both. Once you do that, you notice it is white. It doesn't have the right permissions on it. So I like to be safe, and I always match the permissions to my LTPA keys orig. So I did, I changed that to 755, so making sure it has the right permissions on it. So once I do that, I copy the keys to my Impact. Now I need to run the configuration of single sign-on my Impact side. Now, if you notice, the configuration on the Impact side is everything done by a script. Okay, so you would run this script called config impact SSO.sh. My advice is always, if you don't know where you're going to need to put in, what options you need to put in, is to always do help. So I did that, and really what you need to concentrate on it is the stuff that I highlighted on the help. Basically the options. The first three options are given to you. I don't think unless you change them, but mostly what you need to concentrate, actually the first two, the last three is the one you need to be careful, and I'll show it to you. So it also gives you an example how the command looks like. So SSO Realm, LTP token, the domain name, the password and the LTPA password and the impact password. So this is example of the command. Again, I copied it from the help, and based on that, my configuration in the previous slides, that's what my command will look like on the impact side. So now I made notes here for you to go back. Okay, so again, I highlighted the last three options because those were the last three options that are different for me than the example on the command. Basically, my domain name is different. Remember when I was setting it up on the slide number 8, I mentioned to you it could have been austin.ibm.com or could have been ibm.com, but I chose to be tiplab.austin.ibm.com. Okay, so that's where you can go to slide 8 to make sure you have the right domain name. Now, the LTPA key password. That was the password for the LTPA option that was on the slide 12, figure number 3. Remember there was an when you configure LTPA, it gives you the time and it gives you the node and it gives you options to put in a password. That's the password you need to remember. And you know, I chose Netcool as a password just to keep it simple. And the last password is my Impact admin password. My Impact admin password, again, I showed to you at the beginning in the slide 4, which was one of the requirements to see what my Impact admin is, which was my LDAP account. Also, I chose, you know, to put the password to be Netcool. Okay, so these 3 options are really important. If you don't do that, you might have problems and it might not work in your configuration. So once you do that, you got your command right with the right options, then you execute the command. If you execute it properly, the command is going to take about, it took 2 minutes and 1 second, and you should see build successfully. Okay. At this point, I am done configuring both sides with single sign-on, with exchanging the keys and the certificates. When you run this command on the impact side of it, the single sign-on, it's going to restart automatically your GUI and your impact. Okay. Again, I would recommend restarting them both. Again, impact and dash. The reason why I always like to be safe. I always, you know, whenever we're making changes in exchanging certificates, I always like to make sure that, you know, the restart will take the new options and it will work. So after you're done with this, restart your impact, GUI and server, and then restart your dash. Once you do that, now you need to do the integration on the dash server. So what you're going to do is you're going to log in dash with your LDAP user.
Pedro, we did have one question. If we
Sure.
could take a break before you get to the dash configuration.
Sure.
Okay. The question was, must the domains be identical for SSO to work?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
If they're not identical, it will not work. So continue on. So now we're going to do the integration on Dash. So we're going to look into your Dash server. You're going to use the LDAP user. Then you're going to go under Settings, Console Integration. You're going to click a new icon, enter the console integration name. In this case, you know, you can choose anything you want. In my case, I chose Impact 7.1. Then you enter your Impact 7.1 console integration URL. Again, use the fully qualified name, for example. Now, when you enter this, one thing you're going to notice is that we're adding another piece to the URL, which is this. And it's part of the documentation, but a lot of people sometimes misses it because you might do copy and paste for your Impact URL. You need to have the rest at the end after console. If you don't have this, it will not work. Okay? Then you will select OK and then save. I have a screenshot of how I did it. Let me show you that. And let me clear this. So this is how I did it. I went to console. It asked me for the console integration, sorry. Then I went to console integration name. I called it Impact 7.1. I put my URL. Again, at the end, I put a rest, REST. Okay. Then I do a save. You can either do a test connection, the test button. Now, what we have seen in the field, and I think it's a current bug right now with Dash, is this test button. Sometimes it will give you something back, or sometimes it gives you an error. Okay. So if it gives you an error, don't freak out. Don't think that your impact is or your connection didn't work. Okay. Still save it, and then you will see it working. Okay, so I seen both ways. I seen where it doesn't work and where it works. I know Dash is working currently on a fix for it, and there is an APAR, but I quite didn't get the APAR number. But I'll go ahead and publish it on a tech note with the APAR to make sure that if you guys run into this, don't freak out on it. Okay, so once you save it, you will see under console integrations that your impact is selected, and you will see a new icon on the top left side that is highlighted in red. Sometimes you see the icon, sometimes you don't. Okay, it happened to me while I was doing this and working with my colleague Ramsey, where it didn't show up, and I freaked out like, man, it doesn't show up, and we just log out of the console on Dash, log back in, and bam, the icon was there. So if you don't see the icon at the beginning, log out, log back in, and you should be in. Another thing that I noticed is, if you're doing a lot of testing and working with your browser, my advice is always to clear the cookies and clear the cache to make sure everything's clean so this shows up. Okay, but a quick log out and log in will do it. So now you should see the icon on the top left side. So I click there, and then you should see console integrations. You will see my Impact 7.1, and Impact should show up at the bottom. Now what I want to do is let me share how my Impact looks like, and I'll show you that this has worked. So if you see it, this is my Dash server, okay, and you see my domain name taustin.ibm.com, and this is my Dash. So I'm going to log into my Dash server using my LDAP integration, my LDAP user. So I don't want this to remember. So this is what my Dash looks like. This is the icon. I see my impact, and I'll click on my impact server, and if everything is working, impact should show up. I'm able to see all my policies. I'm able to see all my services, my Oprah reviews. I should be able to see everything. Okay? So this is working. And that's it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Just a few details. If you guys have any questions, this is the time to do it.
If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat, and I will ask them. We have one question so far. Is this the same process as SSO with the APM UI and the TEPS with Dash?
You said TEP, TEP?
Yes, the TEPS. That's
yeah, I would not. This is just pure impact. It could change a few things. So this is just for impact.
We have another question. Are there any TS steps? I'm not sure what TS stands for.
Yeah.
Troubleshooting.
Troubleshooting.
Do you have any troubleshooting steps? If you receive an error, what would you look at?
Well, I will look at the logs. First of all, if you're doing the in the impact side of it, I will. Let me see. Let me show you. Let me see if I'm logging into my. Yeah, this is one of my impact servers. If you're having any problems with your impact server, of course, the first thing I will look at, it will be under the logs directory. That will be that my impact server and my impact UI errors. On the Dash side, I know they have a script to collect all your logs, so I will definitely take a look at those logs in there. The major problems I will see, and then the most problems we've seen in the field, is basically just the configuration, making sure the SSO realm is the same, the domain names are the same, and you're using the correct passwords. And the other thing is making sure you're using an LDAP or object area as a user repository. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. I haven't seen many other issues unless, it was one of the steps missing.
There's another question. On which JazzSM fix pack have you done this integration?
It's Fixpack 3. And Impact is Impact 7102 Fixpack 2.
Okay. If there are any more questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. I did have one question that we got before the webcast. And this is really from the last presentation. How can you give the LDAP group level authorization?
So when you're using LDAP with Impact, what you want to do is you use the map roles. So you can add roles to a group, roles to the different roles that will allow you to access Impact. So I will use the map roles. You might want to use map roles help, and they're under security integrations directory under Impact Home.
We have another question. Which platforms could it be installed on? Are you asking about what platforms can Impact be installed on?
So the latest one is 7102. Okay, 7102 is for, it can install on Windows, Linux, and Unix. So we're pretty much covered on all platforms on 7102. I know we have, it's a little bit confusing of what Impact, because the first time we released Impact 7.1, it was 7.1.00, which was only released for Linux, I believe. And then we did 7.1.01, which included Windows. And then 7.1.02 was open to everything. So if you're going to do this, my advice is to get to 7.1.02. Now, can you go from 7.1 to 7.1.01 to 7.1.02? Yes, you can. There's a patch that you can do that.
The question was about LDAP. Can the LDAP be an Active Directory, or does it have to be an LDAP on Linux?
No, it could be an Active Directory. Actually, on this case, I used an Active Directory LDAP.
Okay. There's a question. Is there any documentation for this integration?
Yes, it's part of a documentation on their Impact site, and the documentation on their admin guide. It's called Integration with Dash and Jazz.
Are there any additional steps if it's an Impact server cluster?
Well, the LTPA keys and the single sign-on needs to be exported to the backup cluster.
So the same configuration steps really need to take place on the backup as they did on the...
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We've had a few questions for can we have a copy of the steps, and the slides will be made available, and this is also being recorded. Are there any additional questions? I think that's it from the questions for now.
Okay, so just to finalize, if you have any problems, even if you get this configuration, I mean, again, just feel free to open a PMR, and we'll be glad to help you out. My colleague Ramsey, who also is on the call, has helped me also with this presentation. So I just wanted to mention that too.
All right. Well, thank you, Pedro and Christina, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. Please do take a few moments to fill out your post-survey event. We love to hear everyone's feedback, and it's very important to us, and we use it to improve on any future events. But this concludes today's conference, and you may now disconnect. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.